Fencing is a special sport that has been practiced for centuries in different forms. The first evidence of fencing and dueling sport was in ancient Egypt and was a form of stick fighting. The modern sport of fencing is based on the European duel. As time passed in Europe, weapons got sturdier, which made it possible to make new swords. The Italians began to use a thrust-based weapon instead of a cutting and slashing, as it was far more lethal. The foil was then introduced as a practice weapon for duels. Later, fencing schools were established around Europe, which turned the sport into a form of art, which is now known as the art of duel. The épée is introduced in the 19th century. The épée is a sturdy weapon where the whole body is a target, unlike the saber and the foil where you can only strike the upper body. The épée later becomes the popular weapon in the sport and in duels. Technology has slowly taken the idea of fencing duel sport further away from its roots. New technology and ways to score a point open for new possibilities and moves. The best example of this is the flick. This is when the fencer exploits the flexibility in the blade and to flick his opponent to get a point. Fencing is a special sport in the Olympics because it is one of 5 sports to be introduced in the first modern games in 1896, along with cycling, gymnastics, track and field, and swimming. Bartosz Piasecki was the first Norwegian to ever win an Olympic medal in fencing. This is how Bartosz would describe what fencing means to him. Fencing is especially because you constantly meet new opponents and thus become in many different combat situations where you have to solve tasks both technically and tactically. All opponents have their own style and one must be prepared both physically and mentally to cope with it. A fencing match is incredibly fast and intense. For the fencer, the intensity is close to maximum, as anything can happen in less than half a second. If you ever have been to a fencing match, you know screaming is extremely common among fencers. The reason for this is not only to intimidate your opponent, but to release the pressure you build up. The smallest mistake in distance and speed in a match can lose you the point or the game. During a match, the mind focuses, the adrenaline flows, and the body acts at the speed of a bullet.